On this episode of Big Boys Don't Cry, we discuss the 2009 film Obsessed, starring Beyoncé and Idris Elba. You don't have to have seen the film to enjoy the podcast, but if you do go ahead and listen without having seen the film, just be aware there may be plot spoilers. Enjoy. Hello.
Oh, hello.
Can you see how ridiculous my hair's getting? Look at this shit.
I can. It is beautiful. It is pure 80s love.
Yeah, that's a good thing, but it doesn't feel like it.
Maybe that's why everyone was so angry in the 80s, was keeping up the feathered hair. It was just too much.
Yeah, and nobody remembers this in the 80s, right? But everyone was furious. First draft of all those John Hughes films, you know, The Breakfast Club, it's just all those kids just punching each other in a room for 90 minutes.
That's exactly right. I mean,
they mess with the bull and they get the horns.
When you listen to the Clash's iconic albums from the 80s, you know, you think that all of the anger is about injustice. Then actually it's not. It's about how angry they are about their hair. Combat Rock is about trying to make sure that their hair is as rock solid as it needs to be to not fall out of shape.
Should I Stay or Should I Go was originally called Should I Fight or Should I Fight?
Exactly. Rock the Casbah, fight the fight.
I love that song.
It is great. It is great. Because they had a couple of, I mean, obviously everyone thinks about London Calling, which is, you know, an amazing album from the 70s.
But that song, London Calling, I'm bored of it. It's like kind of everyone celebrated as this great song. It's like, yeah, it's all right. You know, they've got much better stuff.
Well, I think the problem is that it's been played so heavily, hasn't it? That it's kind of overdone it. I think from that album, The Guns of Brixton is a better track, personally. But you know, I'm not gonna dismiss London Calling. I think the problem is that a lot of people have parodied it and done it over like that. But I think the 80s stuff of the Clash might be a little bit better. I think Combat Rock is an amazing album.
Yeah.
Personally.
When was the album with the self-titled album? Was that?
I think that was early, wasn't it?
Yeah, because that's the one that I had that I played like over and over again.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's 77. Blimey.
All the way back in 77.
Yeah, and actually you talked about London Calling, that's 79. Blimey.
Yeah, I had London Calling, Combat Rock, and Sandinista, which is good. I like it. It's a little bit underrated, I'd say. In comparison to some of their other stuff. But yeah, I think they're a good band, or old Clash, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure. I think that one that it's easy to think of them as this great iconic punk band that sort of old gits like, but actually they are good.
Yeah, I think it's that they took a lot of risks that a lot of punk bands in particular didn't take. Because what's interesting about punk is that musically it's actually when you think of kind of like the core bands, it's actually very conservative in its approach, and there's not much experimentation. Even nowadays, when you hear punk music, very rarely does it push the envelope. And I think the various different strands of punk, like crust punk, which is one of the stupidest genre names.
I still refuse to accept that that's real. It doesn't exist. It's something that like The Onion made up.
I think that there's a lot
not The Onion. What's that other one? The Hard Times. That's the one.
The Hard Times. Yeah. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of pushback about anything that's different, and that's the same with pop punk as well. When you listen to a pop punk song, I'm gonna cause some hate here, possibly from you, but they all kind of sound the same, don't they?
Fuck you! How dare you! How very dare you!
And I love pop punk when I was a wee, but
is it even still a thing?
Pop punk's still a thing.
It doesn't exist anymore, does it? Surely
it still exists.
I think we now need to follow up our side podcast about new metal with one about pop punk.
I think we definitely could. There's enough of it, but I think again, is there enough variation within pop punk
Now, do you class a band like The Offspring, for example, as a pop punk band?
Yeah, I would do.
Because, they've done a lot of interesting things and made lots of great albums over the years, and they're not as goofy as what you might think as the atypical pop punk band, which is something like Blink-182, right?
I'd say they're goofy, but they're more goofy in a knowing way.
Yeah, for sure.
Which there's a lot of deliberate goof. Remember, of course, that Blink-182 did release a song called Fuck a Dog.
Yeah. Dexter from The Offspring, he's got a PhD in microbiology. He doesn't get up there and go, shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, like Blink-182 do. Yeah. That song where they just say swear words. They just swear. The Offspring never stooped that low, did they?
So although there's some very silliness there, I think there's a maturity to the silliness, if that makes any sense. There's a sense of understanding of the immaturity that I think a lot of the other bands didn't have. But I think pop punk is kind of it's kind of blended with the post-hardcore scene, and like the emo scene. So when you listen to a lot of relatively popular rock bands that are around nowadays, I think those three scenes have kind of blended together into this homogenous music that has the choruses of pop punk, the occasional riffing of post-hardcore, and the vocal stylings of emo, and that's what every rock band sounds like now.
Yeah, and it's for people in their early 30s like us anyway. Kids aren't listening to this stuff.
Well, I think kids are listening to it.
No, kids don't listen to guitar music anymore. Do you not know this? They're only listening to like down-tempo, really, really moody electronic music. Yeah, made by teenagers in their bedrooms. That's all that kids listen to. All
they listen to is old Massive Attack B-sides. That's what's popular with kids these days. No, that's right. Every youngster is just listening to Nicki Minaj.
Yeah,
that's it
for sure.
That's the only artist that young people listen to. These damn Zoomers.
I think if anything, Nicki Minaj is too upbeat for today's teenagers.
They want sad electronica.
Yeah.
Which just shows I should have been around in this era, because sad electronica, that's my jam.
That's your thing, yeah.
Yeah, love a bit of sad electro. Nowadays, sad electro is not sad enough.
Yeah, it's too uplifting for you.
It's all like Billie Eilish. It's like, no, that's not sad enough for me.
Nah, rubbish.
Give
they haven't even heard of guitars.
What's a guitar?
She hasn't even heard of Van Halen. Did you hear about that?
Oh yeah, that made me laugh so much.
There's this huge... I don't even know if she said that for a laugh or not, but that is hilarious.
But legitimately, would you have heard of Van Halen if you were of her generation?
Probably not. No, and why should you?
No, exactly. I think... it's
apart from the fact that was it Eddie Van Halen threatened to shoot Fred Durst or pulled a gun on him? There was this thing. This should be on our other podcast, obviously. But
yes, yeah.
There was this whole thing where there was like a collaboration between Limp Bizkit and Eddie Van Halen that never got off the ground because Eddie Van Halen was furious that they were smoking weed, and then he came around and knocked on the door of Fred Durst's house while brandishing a gun.
Amazing. I think the thing is that they've not really done anything since in like the last 5 to 10 years, have they, Van Halen?
Well, they've not done anything since about 1982, have
no,
they?
But I mean, they've been touring and things like that. But they haven't, like, in between when they actually released music and around 10 years ago, I swear they were touring a lot. But I don't think they've done anything for a while since then. And so, like, why would someone who's only been in the industry for a couple of years and who is literally a teenager know who Van Halen were? Bearing in mind that Van Halen aren't exactly the first name that you think of when you think of good guitar music.
That depends on whether you read guitar magazines or not.
Like, I don't think, I think maybe there's a little bit more to be said about if she'd said, I don't know who the Beatles are, or...
That would have been even more hilarious.
Which would have been funny, or like, who were the Rolling
I would have so
Stones?
much respect for her if she said that.
But at the same time, that would obviously be a lie. Whereas I think, why would young people know who Van Halen are? Okay, name a Van Halen song. I don't think I can even name a Van Halen song off the top of my head.
Jump.
Jump.
Might as well jump. You said that with such disdain. I don't mind Van Halen. Jump. Come on. Ain't Talking About Love. That's a good riff.
Hot for Teacher.
Hot for Teacher. That's it. That's what I was going to say. I always assumed that the reason they didn't do anything after the 80s is because David Lee Roth was hot for teacher, and then he married the teacher and settled down and had kids.
It's like the scene from Up.
Yeah, exactly.
He puts his guitar down.
Yeah.
And then,
she's never even seen Up. Unbelievable.
She's not even seen Toy Story. She's
These
only seen Toy
teenagers
Story
these
3. So, I think a lot of people would have suggested that young people should be obsessed with Van Halen.
Yeah,
you say?
For sure. As they were in 1982 or whenever. Not in the year 2009 when this film came out.
And yeah, so that leads us into a movie that I am now obsessed with. A movie called Obsessed. Were you
obsessed before you saw the movie Obsessed, or did you have to see the movie Obsessed to become obsessed with the movie Obsessed?
I had to see the movie Obsessed before. I got a temp job with the movie Obsessed, and then
and then you ruined it.
I realized how great it was, and I decided that I needed to be obsessed with the movie Obsessed.
I would never guess the temp.
Have you?
That's my impression of Idris Elba's accent in this film.
I think Idris Elba generally, I think he does a decent American accent. I've seen him do a lot of American accents over the years, because if you're an English actor, generally you've got to do it at some point. Unfortunately,
do you find that sometimes with some British actors it's totally fine, and then with others you can never get it out of your head? You're like, it's such and such person. I guess it depends what you know them from, or if you think of them as an intrinsically British actor, you find it difficult. And I'm struggling to think of any examples apart from someone who's not British, who's Irish, who's Chris O'Dowd, which is after you knew him from being in the IT Crowd, and like other stuff where he's very Irish. I saw him then in some terrible romantic comedy where he was putting on an American accent, and I was like, I can't watch it. I genuinely cannot see it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I get that with some people, but often I can get it out of my head if they're good at doing the accent. So have you seen Knives Out yet?
No, I have not.
Daniel Craig has the best American accent in that. It's a real sort of like New Orleans drawl, and he does it perfectly. And you don't think of him as, oh, it's James Bond.
But there's a goof factor to that film, isn't there?
There is, but it's a good goof factor. It's a kind of goof factor where you get wrapped up in the entire plot and performance and character. I
think if there's a goof factor, it's okay. Because it's entirely possible. I don't remember what this fucking film was with Chris O'Dowd in it. It was terrible. See, this is the thing. Even what's ostensibly a comedy is not funny if there's no goof factor. And you can have a romantic comedy that exists without goof factor, right?
No,
I'm going to have to look this up because it's going to bug me.
I love how much effort's going into looking up this terrible movie that you've watched. But Idris Elba, generally, I think he does a decent American accent. And this one is okay, but I wouldn't put it as a good English American accent.
No, but it's not that bad. But there are certain moments when it slips, and you're just like, okay,
when it's just like,
it's Idris Elba.
Oh, Luther's come back. Hello, Luther. You know,
I never saw that.
Oh, it's very good. It's very good. And you can watch it all.
Friends with Kids. This film was called
Friends with Kids. That's the most boring name for a film I've ever heard in my life.
And it is a boring, stupid film.
The one thing I would say
we should watch.
The one thing I would say about Idris Elba's accent in this movie is that somehow it's still better than Beyonce's American accent.
Even though that's her actual voice.
She is bad in this film. I'm sorry. I like your music, but this is not a good movie, and you should feel bad for being in it and making it worse.
For essentially just playing herself if she was married to a guy in the suburbs. Yeah. And didn't make music.
And didn't do anything. Her character does nothing. So obsessed, right? I'm so glad we watched this. This was a lot of fun to watch.
This is a shit piece, right?
This is a shit piece. This is definitely a shit piece. This is the kind of movie that Secret Obsession could have been, I'd say. And I enjoyed watching Secret Obsession because that is a trash fire in its own right.
That's also a shit piece.
Yeah. But this was a high budget shit piece,
but still looks old. Did you think that? Like it looks way older than 2009, and that's only like 11 years ago. But
yeah, it looks like a movie from around 1999, 2000, I'd say. And the only thing that gives it away that it's not is that they're constantly putting 2008, 2009 pop music in it.
Just like shoehorned in there, quite incongruously, actually. In a way that really did not complement the score.
No, definitely not. It's very
Which was
odd.
like basically for most of the film, you just had this kind of low level, like annoying marimba music, like that's supposed to be tense, but actually just sounds stupid. You know?
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom.
It's really dumb. It's really dumb. So Obsessed is about Idris Elba and Beyonce. They play Derek and Sharon. I think those names would be much better if it was set in England. So you had a British guy called Derek and his wife Sharon.
That sounds like a couple who run a chip shop.
Exactly. And it should have been about a couple that run a chip shop and they get in a new delivery driver for their fish and chips.
I'm temping in a chip shop.
Who then falls in love with...
Wasn't that a 1999 hit for the band Corner Shop?
Temping in a chip shop. Gonna get some scampi. Why don't you love me?
You get the free scraps at the end of the day.
But where is your scraps of love? That's a song. So Idris Elba is a big businessman who does finance. Beyonce used to be his assistant and now has his baby.
So of course she gave up work.
And she gave up work and wants to get back to work, but that's a plot point that never really goes anywhere.
She's going back to school.
Oh, she's going back to school, of course, because she's doing all the learning. She gets
which is American for college.
Yeah. But then there is a new temp in Idris Elba's big finance building, played by Ali Larter, who we love.
Friend of the podcast.
She always listens in. She's a big fan.
Yeah.
And we're a big fan of her. So she is Lisa, the temp that comes in, and instantly...
They're always called Lisa.
Instantly becomes...
You're tearing me apart, Lisa.
She is tearing them apart. She instantly becomes a sexual predator in the workplace, basically. Yeah. It's fucking horrible, and just decides, right, I'm going to fall in love with and have sex with Idris Elba's Derek. Not put off by the fact that he is called Derek. Which shows its true love.
But she seems to turn predatory like in 1 second, where suddenly she follows him into the toilet and grabs him, and you're like, oh, okay, this has taken a turn. Yeah, I mean, we knew where this was going because we knew what the setup was, but like the way it happens is really, really jarring.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. Where she's flirting with him, he's not flirting back. And then 1 moment later, she follows him into the toilet and then tries to have sex with him. And then later on turns up in his car wearing lingerie and
wearing a long like
as a flasher
like
coat.
What's the flasher coat, a Rick Astley style Mac.
Yeah, she's never going to give him up.
What's that character, McGruff the crime dog? She's wearing like a McGruff the crime dog coat.
She's sexy McGruff the crime dog, which a lot of hot-blooded males they find that hard to turn down. Sexy crime dog. But Idris Elba,
secret ingredient is crime.
But Idris Elba is married, as he makes perfectly clear about 15 times by saying, "I'm a married man."
She's somehow managing to be lying down in her lingerie in his car in a very strange angle. I don't know how they got that angle.
It's the stalker angle.
Yeah.
You got to be a stalker to pull it off. So Idris Elba says, I'm married, or I'm a married man, or I've got a kid, or I've got a family, or I'm out I'm retired from the game, etc.
Yeah.
Probably about 15 to 20 times as part of
as
this.
many like cringe masculine bro sports metaphors as you can throw into it.
Yeah, and it's always either around his horrible toxic masculine workplace or to the woman who's basically sexually assaulting him, and then later rapes him. I think it's worth pointing out. This is one of the movies where they do not treat that with the same amount of concern that they should, and it's not good.
And they think that if they don't show it, you won't assume that that's what happened.
Yeah, it's not good. It's very horrible. And you know it's coming because this is the kind of movie where that would happen. But it's weird seeing it in what is a very milquetoast film in general.
Yeah. Other than that, it's pretty toothless, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's kind of what disappointed me. And I knew that, I mean, Beyoncé would not be in anything where it turned into a horrible murder fest at the end, because obviously it would not be good for her brand to be in something that controversial. But it still needed that.
Not back then. If they were making this film these days, there'd be murders every 10 seconds because murder's popular now.
Society is obsessed with murder now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it needed that, didn't it? It needed an end scene that was almost like a slasher movie to really put it off. A bit like Secret Obsession pulled it off.
What happened at the end of that film? I've totally forgotten.
Well, basically they had a big fight in the house, but it went on for a long time, and it was concerning. Whereas in this, they kind of don't really do a lot, and then she falls down a hole in the ceiling and then gets killed by a chandelier. Spoiler alert. It's bad. Yeah. And then the movie very abruptly ends.
But you don't see it like piercing her or anything, do you? And it's sort of like lying on top of her and not completely on her. The angle of it was really weird, and I was like, is she dead?
Yeah, but it's because they couldn't get away with doing that kind of thing while still making such a weak film that didn't want to be controversial at all. So
they can get away with the crime that is making a pun on temp and temptress. Temptress, more like.
Temptress, more like. This movie is the ultimate ode to toxic masculinity, both in terms of how it impacts on men and women. So we're going to be doing a really deep philosophical reading of this absolute trash fire here, but I think it deserves it.
That's what we're here for. This is what we do.
So let's talk first about
Kant.
Yeah. Let's talk about the characters first, and then we'll go on to what this movie wants to represent to the audience and how the toxic masculinity element ties into the audience. So to begin with, let's look at the male characters in this movie, where you have Idris Elba, who is trying to be, and I think his character is probably the most sympathetic in this movie, where he's trying to joke around with this temp to begin with, but then realizes, oh wait, she's taking it too far. I need to back
He's trying
off.
to be nice. He's on the fringe of the bro culture in the office. He says enough bro things to be popular with the bros, but he's not like a super bro because he's married and he's nice. Yeah,
and he's not kind of acting on anything. So he should really be calling it out to HR that the CEO of their company is a lecherous creep. You know, that's the kind of thing that shouldn't go on.
But HR probably bros themselves.
Indeed. But when it comes to the inappropriate behavior in the workplace, he actually goes through the right steps in terms of, stepping back, not physically engaging, and then reporting it to HR, where it turns out that she's left the role.
Yeah.
So he's actually going through all of the appropriate measures. Where his element of toxic masculinity comes in is thinking, I can handle this without talking to my wife. And this is a movie that relies heavily on we do not have communication. No one talks to anybody.
All could have been solved with a text message.
Yeah, literally.
What was that other film where it was like that?
Oh God, so many films that we watch.
Probably at least half of the films that we've watched.
Mobile phones do not exist in cinema. That's rule number one of writing a script. But yeah, this movie could have been resolved by him telling his wife saying, we should probably report this to someone because his behavior is a bit dodgy. Her then getting the sack, and then if she comes around again, them getting a restraining order.
Yeah.
Sorted, done, dusted. But he doesn't. He keeps it to himself. And that's where his toxic masculinity comes into it. Where the men in his company come into it is going, oh, I wish she was like that with me. And eventually his big bro friend is like, yeah, no, that's fucked up. You need to do something. But even then he's like, oh, I can't talk to your wife about it when she asks. You've got to talk to her. I can't do that. I'm too much of a man to do that.
Yeah. Because we are men.
Yep.
I think it was was it Wicker Park? I'm looking back over.
Wicker Park, yes. Wicker Park is very much
where Josh Hartnett didn't text his girlfriend, and then a whole film happened about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And there was a man that we stan, Matthew Lillard, selling him some sexy shoes. That's all I remember about Wicker Park, apart from the fact that the end scene, he was like stood with his back to the woman he loved while the Coldplay song played for ages.
Yeah, sexy shoes, Matthew Lillard, awkward standing, no mobile phones. That's
great film.
Yeah. So that's where the kind of male element of toxic masculinity comes in. But then if we move to the female characters, it's a very different portrayal, but it ties into toxic masculinity. So to begin with, you've got Sharon. Sharon! Put the chips on, Sharon! Get those Savaloys
All right, Derek.
Get those Savaloys on. So Sharon...
Oi, Savaloy.
I think Sharon's role in terms of the portrayal of toxic masculinity can be summed up by the fact that her husband gets sexually assaulted and then raped, and her reaction is to kick him out of the house. Which is incredible. It is not good. She is the worst character in this movie, even though one of them is a rapist stalker who tries to kill someone.
Yeah. It's because she wants to go back to school.
Yeah, it's right. Knowledge is power, but you know what else is power? Dropping a chandelier on someone.
Yeah, that's true.
There's the two kinds of power. You've got knowledge and chandelier dropping.
Having them fall through the ceiling of your massive house.
Yeah, exactly. So she ties into the whole thing of men not being vulnerable in that way. And then of course you've then got Lisa, who is a creepy stalker, and the movie portrayal of her isn't as and I hate to do the what about the men's here, but if the characters in this movie were swapped the other way, it would have been a very, very different film.
Yeah, for sure.
If it was a male temp and a female boss, and then the various sexual assaults that happen in this movie, and the sexual aggressiveness, it would have been an extremely different movie. And I think reactions would have been very, very different to the scenes in it. And that is where the audience expectation put on by this movie comes into its toxic masculinity trappings, where this is seen almost as a titillating movie. This isn't portrayed in the grim drama aspect that it would be if the events of the movie
it was actually acknowledging.
Yes, exactly. So instead it's all played as not as a joke, but it's played as a sensational, silly film, which
it's a domestic thriller, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like all of those books that you read, like The Bitch Next Door Stole My Child, or whatever. All of the books that actually sell. It's like that.
I couldn't get cheese.
The Girl on the Train.
I couldn't get cheese for my fajitas.
Yeah, exactly. Shock horror.
Yeah, exactly.
Number one on the bestseller chart for 8 weeks.
Yeah, this is a soft focus B movie. But
I don't work in trade publishing anymore, so I'm allowed to say that. Those kind of books are boring and stupid.
I know you, Paddy. You're just like, I only read literary fiction written by 50-year-old professors about how they want to fuck young women.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the real good books.
Those are the only good books. I'm having an affair with my student. This is hard. The only genre of book.
Yeah. I also have a family, and here's some weird stuff in Russia or some shit.
Here's the 3 chapters in Minsk that add nothing to the overall experience. Fuck those kind of books.
Yes, no, I agree.
Literary fiction is well boring. Genre fiction
As
is
we said
good.
before on this show, books are for nerds anyway.
Books are for nerds. You know what's not for nerds? Trash fire films like Obsessed.
Trashy thrillers. But it's a domestic, isn't it? The point I'm trying to make is that these kind of things are popular because it's just like a very, very boring, basic kind of, this could happen to you.
Yeah, if you were upper middle class and you didn't work and you were bored, you could watch this movie and think, "Oh, this is a bad thing," but secretly this is quite exciting to watch. And I wonder if.
But it's also slightly aspirational because you want to have that massive house and the baby and the sexy Idris Elba working in finance.
I mean, yeah, he's the perfect man, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's Idris Elba. He's fucking rich. What more do you want from a man? I know that I would go out with rich Idris Elba.
Yeah,
Idris, if you're listening, we know you are. We know you're a big fan.
We have a proposition for you.
we are obsessed with you. But yeah, and so again, that's where the toxic masculinity element comes into it there, isn't it? It's that this is a silly domestic thriller that's kind of aspirational in spite of its perverse nature, where you look at their fancy house, you look at their perfect life, and you aspire to that, and you almost think, "Oh, I'd love it if something exciting like that happened."
Yeah. Which is, 50 Shades is a bit like that, isn't it? But with even more of the kind of pantomime of conspicuous consumption.
Yeah.
Stuff that's risque, but not really risque, and a bit of whipping.
Yeah, this really ties into that, doesn't it? In terms of the looking at rich things and pouring at them on your television screen.
Yeah.
It really does that, doesn't it?
Are you there? Hello.
I don't know what happened then.
Did you have to pop out for a second?
I had to. There was someone at the door claiming to be a long lost friend who was trying to steal my baby.
Oh right, yeah. And your stupid babysitter just let them in.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
worst babysitter ever.
I really feel for that babysitter though, because
where the fuck did they find her? That's the most irresponsible shit I've ever seen in my life.
I do feel for her because clearly they had. She'd been listening in and had worked out that a friend was coming over. The babysitter didn't know the friend. And then it's hard to impose yourself on someone like that, particularly if you are a 16-year-old girl working for these rich people. You don't want to upset them.
No, and I guess you assume that anyone who's in their circle is telling the truth.
Yes, yeah, precisely. Especially if they do say that their name is someone who's meant to be coming around like the day after.
Yeah.
So I don't mind the babysitter.
But really, she was also listening to music on her iPod the whole time instead of watching the baby.
What the youths do. Well, the baby is asleep.
Yeah, but you still got to listen in case it makes a noise.
No, you don't. You leave it to fend for itself. That's how babies grow strong.
Oh, sorry. That's clearly where I'm going wrong with my feeble son.
Yeah, exactly.
He's actually incredibly strong for his age. He likes to pick up, he's got this toy piano, he likes to pick it up and throw it across the room like the Incredible Hulk. It's really annoying.
Well, the next step for him clearly is to put him in a cave with wolves, and then he'll beat up the wolves, and that's how he gets even stronger. That's you can trust me. I know lots about childcare.
And then we'll be having wolf for dinner.
Yeah, wolf for dinner. That's what you want.
Wolf meat.
Delicious wolf meat curry.
Yeah.
But yeah, but lots of stupid things happen in this movie, and that's what I really liked about it. This movie is bad, and I'm probably never going to watch it again. But I enjoyed the various.
It's not good, bad enough for you to want to watch it again.
No. So I liked the fact that she went off and then just hung out with their baby for a bit.
Yeah. Just held
and
him.
Then left it in their car. That was pointless. I like how she just kept turning up in fancy outfits. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, you're a temp.
Yeah.
You temp for a living. How do you afford like a pearl necklace and all of these fancy dresses?
You don't think they were gifted to her by a previous Richard Idris Elba?
Maybe she's been successful with a previous Richard Idris Elba type.
Yeah. Who then had to move to Monaco for tax reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And then I really appreciated the assistant, who is the worst assistant in the world and keeps giving away this vital information about his boss.
You mean the only gay person in the film who is the office bitch?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because there's no stereotyping. What was his name? Patrick. Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad.
Yeah.
And his character is amazing. I really love him.
And he's the one who gives the game away. And he's all like, yeah. At the end, she rings him up like months after everyone in the office has known everything she's done, and he's like, oh, I'm so happy to speak to you. Please let me give you all this information, which is just so stupid.
Yeah, she comes out and says, like he literally says, oh, I could get fired if I'm speaking to you, and then just like, oh, here's where Idris Elba is, here's where his wife is, here's a list of his allergies and all of his biggest fears. Good luck, enjoy
them, you cheeky criminal.
Oh, I enjoyed talking to you for the 3 weeks that you worked here. I'm very happy to divulge all this information.
We became really close after you called me a queen at the Christmas party.
It is so dumb. And then
very bad character.
A shout out to my other favourite character in this movie, the terrible, terrible cop who is rubbish at her job. Oh God, yeah.
Detective, what's her name?
Detective Bad Cop, who first goes,
the worst.
I don't believe you. This is a load of old nonsense. Then thinks, oh wait, yeah, you're telling the truth. Before going, well, there's not a lot we can do about it. Good luck with the stalker.
Yeah. Yeah. And then she like asks the stalker woman loads of questions, and she's like, oh, maybe there's some truth to what she's saying. And you're like, no, it's complete bollocks, and a detective wouldn't do that.
Here's a copy of her diary that I got somehow. Do you reckon that Ali Larter gave them her diary as proof?
Yeah.
It was like, here's my diary, here's explicit descriptions of all of the sex acts that we've done, because that's definitely a normal thing that someone would keep.
All the language around it was really, really it suddenly got really clinical and weird, didn't it? Like, yeah. She's like, there were lots of graphic sex acts in this diary. It's like, come on, lighten up.
Oh man, this was such a bad movie.
Yeah. It would have been great if she'd just like opened it and gone, on this page, she says she fucked you. There wasn't even any swearing in this film, was there?
No. They say arse, don't they, at some point?
And bitch.
And bitch, yeah, there's a lot of bitch. I enjoyed
Rob's review of this film. There was a lot of bitch.
I enjoyed Derek, put the bad sausages in.
Yeah.
We've got a queue.
Where are my scraps?
I enjoyed Derek when Ali Larter's Lisa is comatose naked in his bed having taken an overdose. Then trying to save her life and going like, bitch, breathe, you bitch. Which was genuinely amazing. I really like how he was so quick to react to try and save her life. And that's kind of the moment. I mean, you always knew that he was like maybe the most sympathetic character in this, but that was a moment where you thought, oh yeah, he's clearly a good guy, this fella. Whereas when Beyoncé is in the roof and like takes a minute to think, should I try and save her life? Or should I let her fall to her death?
No way. Kill her. Because that's the thing. It's a great fight scene, right? It's well choreographed and it flows really neatly. And I enjoyed it as a fight scene. But like the whole thing was like, it felt like the film was, you were supposed to believe at that point that the film had built you up to it by having loads of like Beyonce angry energy about it, when actually she didn't know anything about it until 20 minutes before. So it just didn't really work as a climax, did it?
No, it didn't work at all. And I think the fight scene was fine, but I don't think it was anything special. And again, I think it comes down to the fact that this movie, it was quite tame in terms of. You don't think
violence. Beyonce like shuffling across the floorboards with like her legs kind of astride with her heels on, shuffling backwards across the floorboards in the attic. You don't think that was great? Sorry, the attic beams.
When I think of dramatic, exciting fight scenes, I think of awkwardly shuffling across a couple of beams in high heels. That's what, I think, you've got the parkour elements of Casino Royale.
What was it that Ginger Rogers said? She did everything Fred Astaire did, but backwards and in high heels. It's like that.
It's like that. Shuffle backwards in heels in an attic. Yes, it was fine, but again, I think it needed a little bit something else. There needed to be like the NC needed to be a good quarter of the movie, I think.
Yeah.
It needed a bit where there's cops waiting outside the house, because they got word that she's coming back, or they've had a call out. Maybe they didn't do the whole thing where she goes off to be with her sister and they just know that she's around. Then you have a scene where she breaks into the house. Beyonce calls them and it's like, help me. Then the cops come in and, Lisa,
there's a massive shootout,
and Lisa kills the cops, and it turns into a slasher movie. It turns into Halloween for the last quarter of the movie, and that's what you really needed here. Is you needed that absolute nonsense violent end, but instead, it's an awkward shuffle in an attic, then a bloodless crushing by a chandelier, and then the movie literally ends about 5 seconds later.
Yeah. As soon as it's over, the movie's done. It's like, we're not elaborating on this, guys. Come on, what do you expect?
No,
the movie's over now.
And I want to know more about the lore of Lisa. Like, who is her sister? Has she done this before with other people? I want an obsessed cinematic universe where they go through all of Ali Larter's random people that she's become obsessed with over the years.
Because, she's done it to everyone. Every company, there's always someone. That's why she's a temp, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The Temp Chronicles.
Yeah, so Ali Larter, we know you're a big fan.
Yeah. We know you listen every week.
Get in touch. I think we've got room to turn this into a Netflix series where each episode...
I was thinking, actually, while watching this, that this is like sub-Netflix originals shit.
Oh, yeah, that definitely. This is
like low... If this is made today, this would be a low-tier Netflix original with no one in it who you know.
It would... Apart
from possibly like one guy who was in Third Rock from the Sun or something.
It would be Secret Obsession, is what it would be.
Well, exactly, yeah.
Yes.
It's funny how we keep coming back to that movie when it really was not good.
it was not good. It was disappointing, I think, was the main thing. And this movie was disappointing in certain ways, but equally it scratched that itch in terms of it being stupid and lots happening. Whereas what I remember from Secret Obsession is that not a lot happened throughout the film, whereas at least here you had quite a lot of things going on.
Secret Obsession was mostly that woman walking in and out of rooms and looking at pictures.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Whereas here you've got lots of like hotel room nonsense and fancy bars and Christmas parties and things.
And the guy who was D-Day in Animal House as a fat boss.
Yeah, he's
which I really appreciated.
He's the sleazy CEO.
And they all sit around talking about a piece of ass.
Yeah, as you do. I've been in many situations where arse is talked about. It's something that with
something that makes it sound like it's the meat you're going to eat for dinner.
when the microphones are off, Paddy and I just talk vile sexist things.
As soon as the show's over, I'm like, mate, do you see that piece of arse?
You see that woman? She was really attractive.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to take her out for dinner and then buy her some roses.
Yep. And then watch The Room together. Piece of arse just sounds wrong, doesn't it? Not that piece of ass sounds right,
no,
but you know what I mean.
Piece of arse, yeah. It almost sounds like an insult. Oh, you absolute piece of arse.
You piece of arse, Derek. What have you dropped the pucker pies in the fryer for?
You've burnt all the haddock, you numpty. I
want to visit this chip shop
Idris Elba and Ali Larter, I'm sure she can do an English accent. They should play Derek and Sharon in their Chippy. A nice little sitcom. Nice little
I would
sitcom.
watch that. This is like a BBC Two 9 p.m. on a Friday.
Yeah,
sitcom,
a 1990s
yeah.
sitcom. It's on after the Britass Empire. Called Something Fishy.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just the comings and goings of a fish shop.
Yeah, you got all the hilarious people who live in the village, you know.
Yeah, it's like, do you remember Dinner Ladies?
Yeah, it'd be like that.
Imagine Dinner Ladies, but it's about a fish and chip shop.
But you could have scrapes that are similar to, you know, the Fawlty Towers School of Comedy, where it's like one week they're redecorating, another week there's some tourists staying over in the town, and they're gonna come to the chip shop and they're gonna not mention the war. It's gonna be like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, calamari, what's that, mate?
Yeah, we've got onion rings, mate.
Calamari, no, this place is clean, no diseases here.
Yeah, there's the one with the health inspectors coming.
Yeah.
Where Idris Elba's trying to get a rat in a shoebox, and then it ends up in the deep fat fryer.
No, yeah, they're doing that. And then another thing that happens in that episode is that they're cleaning the whole place with bleach, but then they leave the bleach out on the side, and one of their regular puts it on their chips thinking it's mayo.
Yeah, and then he dies.
Oh, this tastes a bit funny. Who's your mayo supplier, Derek? It's like, oh, same as always. Oh, Jiminy Crickets, you didn't put that on your chips, did you?
And then he just collapses. And he's dead.
Yeah, and then he's dead. Laughter track plays for 5 minutes. End of episode.
Yeah. And he's like, whatever the kind of British chip shop equivalent of the Seinfeld bass is.
Just a very sad trombone.
Boo, 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 boo. And it's like it's about how on Seinfeld, right, the guy would do it's keyboard bass and he would do it along to every episode, like, so it's actually in time. We need to get a trombone guy who can do that along to this show.
Yeah, exactly.
There's probably someone in a ska band who's been furloughed recently.
Yeah, get in touch, guys. We can do this. So one thing that I was happy about is that this movie didn't go down the Disclosure route. Now, do you know Disclosure?
The band?
No, unfortunately not, because the band are quite good.
Yeah,
but
I was going to say, what have they got to do with
it? they're obsessed with me. They keep trying to get into my house and steal my cat.
Can't blame them.
Disclosure is it was a book by Michael Crichton, and then it was turned into a trashy movie, kind of like this in the 90s. And in that, it was Demi Moore coming onto Michael Douglas and then claiming sexual assault against him.
Oh, right.
And it's a piece of shit. But I thought that maybe this movie might go down that route, and I'm glad that it didn't, because I think if they added that in, it would have been an element too much of bullshit.
Yeah.
And I like that they didn't go down that route, and she kept true to her roots of being a creepy stalker. Like, who
sure. That's all there is to
who
it.
does not plan ahead, who just makes impulsive decisions that never work. And I like that it stuck that through road of zero calculation. So yeah,
it's a straightforward film. You got to give it that.
Yeah. So I'm glad it didn't go down that way. I'd just like to point out a couple of reviews. This received a 0 from Rolling Stone, calling it a rank cheeseball thriller that buries you in cliches and won't even help to dig yourself out, which I like.
Good use of the word cheeseball. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Not used enough.
New York Times said, and I'm not sure how accurate this is, I think this is a little bit of a suspect thing to say, the movie's most disturbing aspect, of which the filmmakers could not have been unaware, is the physical resemblance between Mr. Elba and Miss Larter to OJ and Nicole Brown Simpson.
Yeah, that's a bit of a stretch.
That's a bit weird. I don't know about that.
Yeah. Because that wasn't really in the public consciousness at the time, was it?
This was a long time after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good. The New York Daily News said the whole movie seems constructed just to get the singer actress, Beyoncé, I assume, not Idris Elba, into a knockdown catfight, shoehorning one of the show business's sexiest entertainers into a scorned woman role, and even then the payoff feels cheap.
That's fair.
Which is fair, which is very, very fair. So yeah, this movie did not go down well with critics. It had a Metascore of 25 out of 100, which ain't great. It gets slightly better user score on IMDb of 5, but 5 out of 10 on IMDb is not very good.
Yeah, when you look at some of the nonsense that's in the 8-9 range.
Yeah, so this movie, I don't think it's maybe got a following. It certainly didn't go down well at the time. But it's funny looking back at, Idris Elba's, he wasn't a massive name in 2009, but now he is. And then Beyoncé, and you think, God, this would have been huge if it came out now. Like, so many people. This
is like the internet fully stands her.
Yeah.
Both of them, probably.
Well, yeah, Idris Elba is.
And this is like before stans even were a thing.
Well, when did Stan come out? Stan came out.
Oh, that was before this.
But the use of
internet-wide concept.
Stan, yeah. So, because, I love Idris Elba. I don't know if I've mentioned how much I love him, but he's brilliant.
He's great.
And
because he's great, you forgive him for being in this piece of shit.
Yeah, exactly. And this was, it was post The Wire, when he was doing odd bits and pieces here and there. He's in 28 Weeks Later, if you remember that.
Yeah,
turns up in The Office as well, which is good. But it was before things like Prometheus or Pacific Rim or Thor, and things like that, where he kind of became more of a big name, and before those big performances like Beasts of No Nation. So yeah, he's good. He's good, and it was even before Luther, I think. I think Luther came.
And
out
he's
after
a DJ as well.
He's a DJ.
Man's got skills,
and also he's McCavity in Cats. Lest we forget.
Yeah. When he's the one who somehow looks the most naked of them all.
Exactly. It's because he's wearing the coat. So because he's wearing the coat, it seems like he's not wearing anything else other than the coat.
It really accentuated the crotch area, didn't it?
Cats, by the way, has 2.7 out of 10 on IMDb.
So the film we just watched is worse than Cats, according to IMDb.
No. Cats is worse than the film we just watched. It's almost double as good.
Oh, right, I see. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's 5. Sorry, I was thinking of Metacritic.
Yeah. But it's insanely low. 2.7 out of 10. I can't think of the last time I saw a big movie with a score that low.
Yeah. I can't say it's undeserved, can we?
No. Soz Cats. And where would you rank Obsessed versus Cats?
They're two completely different films. I don't think it's
but
really fair to
we're
compare
film
them.
critics. We've got to compare everything.
Let's see. Which one? Well, I guess you have to ask. Which one would you rather watch again?
Oh.
And Cats is really nightmarish, but Obsessed is kind of boring. And it's like, that you're... Even though there were, like, enjoyable shit piece things about it that we've just been talking about for some time, watching it again, those things wouldn't land in the same way and it would be boring.
Yeah.
Whereas, to relive the horror of Cats again might be a transcendent experience.
Maybe. I think I agree with you. I think maybe I'd rather watch Cats. The real answer is I'd rather kill myself than watch either again. But yeah. You're probably right.
You're just trying to get a shortcut to the heaviside layer. That's not how it works.
Anyway, right. Have you got anything else you'd like to say about?
You got to be a jellicle. There's a couple of just bizarre things in it that I wrote down, which is that at Christmas, that they have a Christmas, and it's clearly like the middle of fucking summer, and they're trying to have Christmas, and he gives her an unboxed MacBook with a bow on it in front of the tree, and they're like, "What the fuck, dude? Did you take it out of the box and put a bow on it?"
Oh, you've got to test out these things before you give them as gifts, don't you?
This is true.
It's the old. If you get a console for your kid, you should unbox it and let it do the system update, because otherwise the kid's going to get it and then be stuck for for however long.
Yeah. And just telling you how much they hate you.
Yeah. Dad, how could you do this?
Yeah. That's
Derek and Sharon wouldn't do this.
That only happens if you don't let your kid go and fight the wolves in the cave.
Yeah, exactly. If you let your kid fight the wolves in the cave, which is what all good parents should do, then they'll be fine. And they won't need a console.
A software update seems like small... Well, exactly. They won't even need consoles.
Yeah. Consoles are for those weak kids that don't fight wolves.
Yeah. Feeble kids.
Feeble kids who need video games.
I wrote down Windows Media Player, and I can't remember why. I think there's a bit where it looks like he's using Windows Media Player on his computer.
Gotta love it.
And I just wanted to point out how horrible Windows Media Player was, and how glad I am that I do not have to use Windows Media Player anymore.
I do appreciate the ancient Outlook interface in this movie when he gets the email in. Yeah. Love Terrible. That. Love that shit in films. Yeah, I'm all over that. And rubbish mobile phones everywhere.
And his inability to block her email address as well.
Yeah. It's just name. What's it? Isn't her name just Temp or something like that?
Yeah, it's like Temp Girl at hotmail.com.
Sexy Temp Girl at hotmail.com. Yeah, so it's quite something, isn't it? This movie. So have you got anything else, or is that?
And also, there's this whole thing where Magic Johnson had the executive producer credit, but I can't find any information about how or why that happened.
It's just, but there's some serendipity. That's all. Sometimes these things happen.
Really into it, clearly.
Yeah.
He wanted a piece of ass.
Right. So I've got some trivia for you.
Oh, good.
So as much as I love Idris Elba, I'm kind of sad that this didn't happen, but originally LL Cool J was set to play Derek.
What? Ladies love Cool James.
They certainly do.
That would have been awesome.
That would have increased the trash factor incredibly. Apparently, the character of Lisa suffers from a mental disorder known as erotomania. Erotomania is excessive sexual desire, where someone believes that another person is in love with them. So yeah, it's a very rare delusional condition, basically.
Which explains everything, and is not referenced.
And I imagine that they maybe came up with this bullshit after the fact, where they were like, oh god, we need to come up with something to explain this. Yeah.
Rather than working on the inevitable like Lisa backstory prequel movie that we need.
Which is what we want. We want that. Yeah, that's what we want. And also, according to the first draft of the script, the scene where Lisa seduces Derek in his car was originally supposed to be more sexually revealing than what was filmed. Which, yeah, I guess she gets her pucker pies out in the original script, something like that.
And they fall in the deep fat fryer.
That is his passionate lust. This chippy version of this film writes itself.
Yeah. But again, that's an example of how actually this film kind of plays it safe.
Yeah. There could have been a lot more. Apparently there was also going to be a passionate sex scene between Derek and Sharon writhing around in the scraps. But that
well, instead, you just got them in their new massive house, like kissing on the carpet and briefly mentioning sex while they left their child in the buggy downstairs.
Yeah.
Irresponsible pricks.
Yeah, they should have put him in the wolf cave.
Exactly. Like, their house is massive enough to have a wolf cave attached, probably.
And equally, why didn't Beyoncé think about unleashing the wolves from the wolf cave when it became apparent that there was a creepy stalker in there?
Yeah, because she knows nothing.
Can I also point out one little extra bit of trivia? The film's working title was "Oh No, She Didn't."
Seriously?
Yeah.
That makes it sound like one of those like How High. I know I keep talking about How High recently offline, but like that just sounds like one of those horrible films from the mid 2000s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Like a Cheech and Chong film.
So one of these days, I would love to see the Bizarro Universe version of this, where a film called Oh No She Didn't, starring LL Cool J and Beyonce, where the stalker was much more sexually explicit and there's much more insane bullshit going on, sees the light of day. And I think maybe that might be a film worth talking more about.
Hell yes. I'd be very up for that.
So LL Cool J,
if you're listening.
We know you're listening.
I know you listen every week.
Get in touch. We'll go make Oh No She Didn't.
Big boys love Cool James.
Yeah, exactly. That's precisely right. So anyway, right, that brings the trivia section to an end. So how are we going to rate this? How many times do you endanger your child's life in name of going for dinner?
Oh, I've done that loads of times. Hasn't every parent? Whoop!
Oh dear.
God, imagine going for dinner. Let's see. 5 times.
Yeah, I'm gonna go one higher for breathe, bitch. So I'm gonna go up to a 6.
That's the thing that tips it over the line for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna go up for a 6 because that made me chuckle. But this movie is bad, and you should feel bad.
Yeah, it is terrible. But you should watch it just for just know that going into it you're watching a shit piece.
I think if you're a fan of Beyonce, it's definitely worth watching just to have this very strange moment in her career where she was in such a bad movie.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it's a curiosity for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think it's definitely worth watching just for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, so what do we have up next?
Well, we had a request from friend of the podcast, Killian Curran, to watch St. Elmo's Fire, and I thought, yeah, why not? Because I haven't seen that film in a long time, and it has Rob Lowe playing the saxophone in it, so why not?
Yeah, and with the very sad news of Joel Schumacher's passing,
yes, of course,
really ties into that. It's worth celebrating one of his most iconic movies that way. And it's been a long time since I watched St. Elmo's Fire, so I'm looking forward to that. That'll be good.
Yeah, me too. I didn't realise Joel Schumacher was like 80, in his 80s.
Yeah, been around a long time.
Yeah, he's a very, very, very interesting and good CV.
Yes.
Very broad range of stuff, and I'm very excited to watch it.
Excellent.
Cool. Well, as always, thank you very much for tuning in. We really, really appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the show and that you enjoy /enjoyed Obsessed. You can find us on Twitter at BigBoysDon'tPod. You can email us, bigboysdon'tcrypodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to support us, give us some money. There's a link in our show notes where you can drop one-off money, any amount at all. Every little helps, as they say. Even just a few pennies, still good.
Yeah, whatever you can give would be great because, then we can buy ourselves pearl necklaces to go out and seduce Idris Elba.
Yeah, exactly. Or I can put some money towards the mortgage on my wolf cave.
The most important thing, you don't want little Johnston Jr. to not grow up surrounded by wolves, do you?
Yeah, I've missed a couple of payments recently, and the mortgage payment holiday scheme that the government put in because of COVID-19 doesn't cover wolf caves.
Oh, well,
it's one of these loopholes. It was on the Martin Lewis Money Show this week, actually, but anyway.
Yeah, we gotta. So yeah, help out Paddy with his wolf cave.
Yep. All right. Thanks a lot. We'll be back next week to talk about St. Elmo's Fire.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.